Nowadays, the majority of guns with an EFT can be pretty viable, and customization can end up being unique and complex once you max out your traders. Today, I figured I'd show you some of my favorite mid to late wipe builds which I'm typically running on a daily basis. These are by no means all going to be meta builds, just what I find most fun to use, regardless of their real effectiveness or cost to build. Before we get into it, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/ShineBusak or on TikTok under the same name. Starting off, let's talk about the SA-58. It's not the most practical gun to use in most situations, but it's powerful, has big mags, and is honestly pretty intimidating. As long as you have a stack of 308 rounds ready to use, I think it's a fun choice for any map. I put a fair bit of money into building these, but not to the point which I consider it meta. The gun itself can be purchased from Peacekeeper or the market, but just make sure you're buying one with a long 21-inch barrel. You'll then want to strip it down to just the barrel and the base of the gun. For the handguard, we can attach the CAS VFAL and then add appropriate rails to attach a foregrip and tactical device. I highly recommend using the RK2 because we're looking to reduce recoil as much as possible. For a tac device, I prefer the blue laser since it's the most easy to see under any circumstances, especially with the muzzle flash we'll be dealing with. Speaking of muzzles, we'll be adding the Lantac BMD combo, the BMD thread adapter, the Draken muzzle brake, and the Lantac BMD itself. Our pistol grip will be the AGFAL, opting for the highest ergo boost we can. Our dust cover will be the extreme duty, so we can add a sight in the appropriate spot. As for sights, I prefer the Delta Point Reflex, but anything will do. For the stock, we'll need to add the buffer tube adapter, the black Strike Industries ARE, and the black PRS Gen 3 stock. If you have the money, you can make the Meta Loud build by using the red ARE, but I personally don't think it's worth the price. Lastly, for mags, I prefer the XFAL 50 rounders, but the 30 rounders can also do the job well. This build ends us up at 7 ergo and 58 vertical recoil. The ergo is pretty rough, but still completely usable. Just make sure you get the hang of it first before taking it into a raid. Minus the cost of the gun, the build will cost you around 200,000 rubles. Not that bad for a near best-in-slot build. Next up is the M4. I love using M4s in EFT because of the 60 round mags, the low recoil, and just how many different ways you can mod them. But do be warned, 5.56 is not the best caliber in the game by any means. It lacks in both pen and damage compared to other calibers, but regardless, can be super fun to use. The base gun we'll be purchasing from Mechanic via the GP coin barter. The barter calls for 4 GP coins, which typically sit around 30 to 40k each, so you'll be paying between 120 and 160k. The reason why we choose this barter is because it comes pre-assembled with the handguard and rails we'll want and the MUR upper receiver, which is significantly better than the stock upper and typically ranges from 60 to 100k on its own. From there, we can start filling out our rails. I'll be opting for the RK2 and blue laser again looking to bring the recoil down as much as we can. We'll be adding the M-Bus front and rear sights for a slight ergo boost from each, and swapping the pistol grip for a Grawl. For the muzzle, we'll want the 22-3 CB as well as the Ultra 5 suppressor. I highly recommend bartering for the suppressor with Skier, as the barter typically sits around a cost of 30k, making it a fairly cheap high-end suppressor. We can swap the carbine buffer tube to the black ARE again, accompanied by the black PRS Gen 3 stock. Again, choose whatever sight you like, but I'll be opting for the Delta Point Reflex. We can then finish off the build by choosing our mag. I highly suggest a 60 rounder, as it'll take a lot of bullets to actually drop someone with 5.56. The Stanag can be purchased via a barter with Peacekeeper for around 30 to 50k, depending on the fluctuating price of the barter. The build results in an ergo of 26, a vertical recoil of 30, and will cost around 200k for parts, but around 350k total. While very expensive and not that powerful, M4s look pretty awesome and are some of the most versatile guns in the game. It'll work great at range, as well as when point blank in front of the opponent on any map. Next, we'll be using the MP7. If you watch my previous videos, you'll know I love the MP7 because it allows for such great speed and versatility in close-range situations. Its high ergonomics gives you near instant ADS speeds, its small size prevents you from being barrel blocked in close quarters, and its low recoil allows it to be functional at a variety of distances. Its only downside is that the ammo starts to lack at greater ranges, but the ease of landing shots definitely makes up for that. To purchase the gun itself, your best option is opting for the flea market. The price typically fluctuates greatly throughout wipes, ranging anywhere from 30 to 80k. For the build I'm recommending, we'll be using the A2 version since it allows for a custom foregrip. We'll start by swapping out the iron sights for ones that add ergonomics, like the M-Bus ones, and then add your choice of reflex or hollow sight. For a foregrip, I typically like the SE5 as it provides a light recoil reduction and a pretty large ergonomics bump for a low price. Next, we'll be adding the Rotex suppressor, dropping the recoil even further. Lastly, we'll add our tac device of choice and then a magazine. You have the option of both 30 and 40 round mags from Mechanic. Personally, I run a 40 in the gun and maybe another 40 spare, then 3 or 4 30s. It never feels necessary to bring an entire rig of 40s in most situations for me. Also, make sure you have the stock extended before going into raid. For stats, you'll be looking at 33 vertical recoil and 52 ergo, with the price, including the gun, around 180k rubles. Again, the MP7 is viable on any map. Just try your best to maintain close positioning to your opponent. Next, we have the AK-74N. The 74N has the best recoil capabilities out of the 545 AK variants. This is another gun that I choose not for how effective the ammo is, but because it's fun to use and looks and sounds satisfying. The base gun can be purchased from Prapor for just under 36k rubles. To start off, we can remove every part from the gun except for the stock. We can start by adding the Troy handguard and gas tube combo, as well as the rails necessary to attach a foregrip and tac device. We're opting for the Troy because it costs slightly less than regular handguards with the exact same stats. We'll be using the RK1 on Beat 25U mount in order to get a proper balance of recoil reduction and ergo boost, and your choice of tac device. For a muzzle brake, we'll be using the best in slot for a loud build, the RRD. While the waffle suppressor is a great option as well, it only provides slightly lower recoil for 11 times the price, and I'm not ever really that concerned about playing suppressed. Next, we'll want to add CSS charge handle for more ergo and the Bastion dust cover, as it provides a higher ergonomics bump while still reducing recoil. As always, pick your choice of sight. For the stock, we'll be keeping the stock wood one, but adding the rubber butt pad from Prapor. The typical choice would be the Zukov, which has slightly better recoil reduction and a significant ergo boost, but will already be reaching pretty good stats without it. For the pistol grip, we'll be using the AGS grip for the max ergo boost, since they're fairly cheap. To finish it off, we use the 60 rounders, which can be found for around 30k on the market or 39k from Prapor. Including the gun, our final price is around 220,000 rubles, with stats of 51 ergo and 41 vert recoil. Our last gun for this video will be the P90. The P90 is by far my favorite gun to use in the game, and I would honestly use it every single raid if the ammo didn't take so long to stock up on because of the low restock limits. This is also going to be the cheapest and simplest build by far. For the base gun, we'll be bartering with Peacekeeper for the P90 SBR, requiring 2 military cables. This should cost you around 55k. For the build, we have only a couple changes. You'll want to switch the stock receiver to the FN90. This will bring your sight of choice closer to the barrel, allowing for a more accurate representation of where your bullets will land when ADSing. You can add a side rail accompanied by your tac device of choice, as well as whatever reflex or hollow sight you prefer. And that's the build. You'll be left at 68 ergo and 34 vert recoil, with a total price of around 85k. As usual, I don't care too much about being suppressed, and the suppressor barely would bring down the recoil any further while taking a chunk of our ergo away. You'll also commonly be using SB193 rounds, as they're the best rounds you can still get from traders currently, which already tank recoil even further. This is another one of those guns that is extremely versatile on any map and lets you feel super quick and agile, similar to the MP7. Do be warned though that mags take a long time to pack and raid, so bring plenty of spares already filled to avoid packing as long as you can. And that's going to be it for this video. I feel like I'm often asked what my favorite guns are to use, so I figured I'd finally throw together a list to showcase it all. Again, these builds are not the meta in the current game state, they're not the best in slot parts for their gun, and they're not necessarily good price to performance. They're simply what I find fun to use later in wipes while still being decent enough to recommend. If you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. But thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.